Hey there guys, thought I'd answer a question that gets sent into the school quite a lot because through various things, through our main admin email and also social media and things like that, you know, we get all sorts of queries coming in, but this is one of the most common ones, so I thought I'd just answer it. I thought I'd answer it, but it's also an interesting topic to look at, I think, actually, as well. And that's about how does somebody go on to become a teacher, I guess specifically within this system or within this school, within Lotus Nei Gong, within the school that I teach or I head. So I want to look at that a little bit because I think first people need to understand my philosophy of teaching for what it is, my amateur philosophy of teaching that I guess I've formulated through not only nearly 20 years now of teaching Chinese arts in various forms. Started in martial arts, shifted to the Qi Gong and Nei Gong, but I've been teaching for a while. And also before that, of course, viewing my own teachers and seeing how they do things, some positive and then some negative teachers I had in the past, or things I would say were maybe didn't live up to the role as teacher as I would see it. Of course, they have their own opinions, and what right is it of mine to say that? But, you know, I've had good and bad experiences. And then even when I was younger, like really young, my parents headed a school and ran a martial arts organisation. So I've been around teaching and teachers in various forms for 40 years now, basically. So as well as studying the arts, it's also always been quite important to me to understand what a teacher is and what teaching is as well. So first thing I should point out is that when somebody contacts you, often what happens is they email and they say, how do I go about being a teacher in your school or a teacher in your system? And often I've never met these people. This is strangers, obviously looking to join a school to get some kind of certification or qualification in the method that I teach. First thing I should say then is actually I think that's the wrong attitude to approach a school with. I don't think it's a rude or an offensive attitude. I just think it's not quite right. So don't take it as me being offended. I just don't think it's right. I don't think that you should approach a system like this or a school like this and with like your first introduction being how do I teach. And also if you did ever teach, I don't think your students, the people who came to study with you, would really find that very inspiring either. I don't think it's a healthy mindset. I think that instead of people looking to understand how to teach, what they should look at is how to do. That should be their start point, you know. So the first things first is, if you've never been to a school, you've never met the teachers in person, you've never seen what we do, you're not seeing how we interact with students, you're not seeing how we interact with each other, you don't know the social ins and outs of an organisation, which is a part of any organisation, of course, then really you don't know what sort of people we are. Like, you don't know who we are. We could be the nicest, most altruistic, veritably saintly people on earth, or we could be horrible, mean, bullying and manipulative. You don't know. You've got no idea because you've not seen or interacted with us. You don't know that. And then that works the other way. If somebody's contacting me or contacting the school asking to teach, I don't know what you're like, so I don't know if you're the kindest person on earth, or I don't know if you're a complete jerk. This really brings us to the kind of second point around teaching, is that as well as your skill level, which obviously you need to develop, also there is your nature as well. And any judgment that is passed upon someone's behaviour or judgment is always going to be subjective. Of course it is. But perhaps we don't always know ourselves as well as we could. So sometimes an outside input to this is quite important. And this is a part of the role of being a teacher, is that somebody needs to look at you and see how you are and how you interact with people and what your goals, your ambitions, your motivating forces are. This is all an important part of teaching as well. I've known that people, you know, have said in the past that, you know, they just want to teach, they don't want to be, like, they just want to teach the shapes and the exercises. I just do it for health or a hobby, nothing more. And I've heard people say, oh, I just introduce people to the basics and then you know, that's all I can do, and that I'm happy teaching in that role. But you have to remember that even if that's your mindset, even if you don't want to get deeper involvement with these arts, that's not always your say-so, because say you have a student that's, or somebody who's come to learn off you who's desperately been searching for internal arts for many, many years, and many of us have been in this pathway, and they've been to the local community centre, there's nothing there, and they've looked online and they're not done so well, and then all of a sudden they get access to essentially a traditional school that has something to it, and they start training, and then they get something out of it. It's like, wow, here we go, this is the Dantian, this is the channels, this is how it works, this is what we're talking about, or my Tai Chi is working, they're getting it. Well, all of a sudden to those people, that's going to be very, very important, and that's going to be an important part of their life. Whether it's the centre of their life or not doesn't matter. It's going to become an important kind of influence upon themselves and their world and how they view life. And by de facto, you are the person who taught them, then you are going to become an important figure in their life, whether you want to or not. I had to learn this as a teacher. I tried to shirk all responsibility and stand back and have nothing to do with it. I'm just here to show you the exercises, man. But of course you can't do that. The teaching is a responsibility, because people will make you quite an important figure in their life, and you have to handle that in a very mature way and know when to, hang on, that's not my role, and not overstepping the boundaries into your life here. I'm teaching you this art, but it's a complicated thing to manage. So because that's going to happen quite often to a certain degree, it means that if you teach, as well as understanding where you don't cross the line, we don't delve into people's personal lives and all that kind of stuff, we know our role, but we also have to have a big wealth of knowledge so that we can try to live up to, as much as we can, that role of being a teacher. That's very, very important. I think that my personal philosophy is we're never like 100% successful of what we do or of fulfilling any role. I'm certainly not. I know that for a fact, but we can do our best to try to live up to that position. It's our responsibility and a part of our sort of level of personal duty to try to do our best to fulfill that position or whatever that role might be. So I spend my trying to the best of my ability and with the most integrity I can to try to fulfill the role of being a teacher. And that comes with various responsibilities and duties and expectations and things like this, which I take on board or do my best to. And I think if a teacher doesn't do that, somebody who's in a teaching role doesn't either have the tools or even the desire to try to live up to that position as best they can, then they're not only a low quality teacher, but possibly also detrimental to the experiences and perhaps even the lives of the people that they're teaching. I think it's big, I certainly didn't recognize at first, and I don't think others do necessarily when they start teaching, just how much of an influence you can have on somebody, and that's got to be treated with respect, that level of influence. So we always try to minimize it, or I do. So you can't just approach a school and say, how do I teach your system? This is what it comes down to. And I'll say, yeah, sure, we got this month-long program that you do this, and that's not right. Like, you need to get to know the school and get to know the system and get to know the people, get to know the community, get to know how it works, develop your own skill first. Like, teaching should be pushed to the back of your mind, like as an agenda. It shouldn't be there. Your agenda, your goal, if you want, should be to make yourself as skilled a practitioner as you possibly can. That is your aim. So you need to focus on that. You need to go as deep into the art as you possibly can, and then only later you worry about teaching others. Like, you need to develop yourself first. I've heard some teachers talk about, like, it's okay as long as I'm just in front of my students, but that's not true. That's not true at all. You need a big gap between you and the people that you're teaching, and if the gap is too close between you and the people you're teaching, then really, with all due respect, you need to pass that student on to somebody more experienced. You need to signpost them to someone who can take them further, because they're too close to you. And the problem is, if the skill level is too close, sometimes you'll make mistakes and you have to backtrack. And now all of a sudden you're behind that student. Not only that, is you've led them down a bit of the garden path, you've confused them in their path. And you need all that knowledge that a student doesn't necessarily have, because you need to know all the things that can go wrong and the potential possibilities of what they're doing can lead to, and just a kind of broader idea of what the nature of the path in general is. All of that knowledge needs to be there for a teacher. Now, I'm sure that some of you listen to will say, well, that's unfair because I just want to teach in a community centre in an evening and that's the end of my responsibility, share some exercises. But I mean, to be honest, again, you don't really have that choice. You don't have that choice who walks in through the door, unless you're going to limit it and you're going to say, I'm only taking casual, non-serious people. You don't have that choice. And I don't think that most people who go to a teacher are going to be happy to think that their teacher is not really that skilled. I mean, why would they? It's not like anyone ever brags online, oh yes, this is my teacher is not very skilled. Like, that's not something people want. People want somebody that is dedicated and very far into the path themselves, so that it can share their wealth of experience and their wealth of knowledge. I mean, these days it's becoming more and more prevalent. I guess it's a copy of the yoga model, isn't it? Because yoga became 200 hour, 300 hour, 12 hour, I don't know what the numbers are, but I mean, but you'll see these sort of 3 week long, 4 week long. I've seen 2 week long, which is kind of short, isn't it? Sort of hatha yoga or even kundalini yoga, teacher training courses that are constantly being stuffed into your social media inboxes and so and I mean, essentially all of that is of course lowering the standard of yoga. I think anybody, if they're honest, will know that those short term sort of blast mass produced teacher training courses are no good. And I think that Qi Gong is starting to follow that route. Social media, I'm getting paid adverts come through because of what I'm connected to, of course, showing me like 2 week, 3 week, 4 week long teacher training courses in this form of Qi Gong and that style of Qi Gong, usually made up styles of Qi Gong, to be perfectly honest. I saw a 2 week one in alchemy come through not long ago, and a lot of them are actually completely online anyway. I mean, obviously these are unsatisfactory, and the only reason people are doing those kind of teacher training things is for money. It's nothing more. It's not because they want to propagate the art. It's not because they have a passion about spreading it. It's for cash. That's all it is. They're just trying to make it to draw as many people as they can and sort of copy the yoga model. And maybe it's not my right to complain about that. It's not my business, and I don't mind if that's what people want to do, I guess. I don't think it's great, but their choice. But I don't want to follow that model. Like, me personally, I don't want to follow that model. So for people to teach in our school, here is the short answer, which is long. First of all, don't contact us asking to teach how to teach our system. Come and meet us. Meet me or the seniors or some of the other people that are teaching and get to know what we're about. And we need to get to know you, because if you go on our website, lotusneigong.com, you'll see there's a branches page, and we have a lot of branches. There's a lot of people teaching in various places around Europe and America especially, but they've all, I know them all. I know them all really well. I've had dinners with them and socialised, chatted with them, found out what they're about, kind of got a vibe for who they are and what they do and what drives them and things like this. And they've trained extensively with me. I mean, the absolute bare minimum, meaning the bare minimum, most people would be more than this, but the bare minimum anyone who studied with me, who teaches, would be 3 years. And during that 3 years, I was seeing them a lot, like regularly. We were meeting up as a group and working on what people were doing. It was very extensive. It's not like I saw them once every 6 months or something. And even then, that's the bare minimum. Like, the vast majority I would expect to have been in the school for longer. So this is not a quick route into teaching. Those people who've done that sort of bare minimum 3 years, they can teach the foundations, and then they're also developing their skill set with the school afterwards, of course. So I would expect those early teachers to still have contact with us and develop what they're doing. But most of the teachers who've been teaching in the school have now been with us for nearly a decade, and their time is still going up. They're still working on expanding what they're doing. To me, a teacher comes into or a student comes into the school, we learn about each other, we figure out who we are, figure out who the community is, the family of Lotus Nei Gong, because it is fairly close-knit, and see if our sort of drives are in line with one another, and that's what we want to do. And then we develop the skill set, and alongside that we have to look at all the things like sicknesses that can arise in people and the nature of medicine and how it's related to this, and all of these kind of topics that are vital for a teacher. And then once someone's skill level gets to a satisfactory stage and someone makes it clear that they want to teach, well, then that's a conversation that we have with each other. That's something we decide, and then we look at the person and we say, well, okay, actually there's some gaps here that we need to kind of fill in a little bit to make them more complete as a teacher. And that's how it is. And to me, that's how a tradition should be, and that's how a school should develop. So if you want to teach for us, I would say forget it until you've come and trained with us. That would be your first step, and see what we do, and forget teaching for now. I know that some schools these days dangle it like a carrot in front of you. You know, you come in here and you do this, and you do 6 weeks with us, and you can get this. And if you do another year with us, you can be a Sifu. And if you do another 3 years, you can be a Master Sifu, and then a Grandmaster Sifu. Like, that's not how we work. That's not how we work at all. There's some people that are very skilled, but not necessarily the right people to teach. It's just it. And some people have the right personality to teach, but they don't have enough skill. And I'm afraid that we need both of those to go together. If ever we're going to do two things. We're going to do justice for the people that come to study with us, and on top of that also to propagate and make this art grow with each generation and get better, so it doesn't get worse and worse and more watered down and more like a lot of the yoga scene has become. And I know Qi Gong's going that way. I see it, you see it. You only have to go on Instagram for 10 minutes, type in Qi Gong, and you'll see shocking, like really shocking, these short-term courses people are doing. And it's normally big, long and flexible. That's essentially what they're aiming for. It's like the sort of the hybrid of modern yoga and Qigong has come together to create this sort of unrelated art. I don't even know what it is, and people are doing these short-term trainings in it, and that's where Qigong is going to go. And I don't want to add to that trend. Okay, I always want to maintain the idea that somebody needs to be the right person and also needs to be skilled, and we need to know them. We need to have a working relationship with these people as well. So that's my view on teaching. The other thing I would add is that I know we have an online branch of our school, Internal Arts Academy, which has proved to be fairly popular actually, and it's going quite nicely. But I would never allow somebody to teach if they've only learned online. Like, obviously not. I don't see why. I mean, I was resistant to teaching online, but that's the way it went. And I guess even people that I've been teaching for a while were quite keen for videos of theories and things they'd learnt. So I kind of caught up with modern times and stopped being a caveman. And actually, I was wrong. It turned out better than I thought. It turns out when I've seen these people that people can learn all right online, but still not the same as in person. And I'd never, the step I can't take is I'd never qualify anybody online. Like, never. That will never happen. Nobody can go through the academy and then teach. I mean, it's even happened a little bit. If I share this, I'm not moaning. I mean, it's just life. I don't mind. I'm just telling you that, for example, we have very early on in the online aspect of our syllabus something called Dantian Gong, which means the skill of developing the Dantian, right? And it's taught in a series of phases over a number of years. So phase 1 is learning how to connect with it, and then phase 2 comes in, I'm going to say year 3, I might be wrong, and then phase 3 comes like in year 5 of the program. It sort of builds upon each other. But we already had people come in and do the first phase of Dantian Gong, like the fundamentals of it. And then if you now go on YouTube and type in Dantian Gong, of course, you'll see these people that I've never met them in person, have gone away and then produced their own video courses in Dantian Gong, which is the first stage of what we're doing in the academy. And they don't know the deeper aspects of it, not at all. So they're kind of badly done as well. They look like beginners doing Dantian Gong to me. Like, anybody in my school who sees these videos thinks it's kind of funny, and some of them find it a bit annoying. And of course, as soon as we did that, we just removed them from the school. That's what happened. But I think that happens now when you teach online, but it used to happen in person. You get people come to a class, as any of you know, do 6 weeks, disappear and start teaching themselves. I remember one lady came on a meditation course with me. It was like 5 days. It was nothing, just an introduction, super introductory stuff, super basic, you know. And then she left after the 5 days, having never done meditation before, moved to France and set up a meditation retreat center, which apparently is doing quite well. But that was the extent of her training. So she managed to turn those 5 days into a whole sort of project where she qualifies people in meditation. So I don't know if karmically that's on me. I'm not sure. I don't know if it's doing benefit or doing harm. Who knows? I got no idea. I haven't seen much to do with it. I haven't seen much about it in years. But those kind of things, those to me just lack, well, I think they're lacking integrity, aren't they? They're lacking honesty. And maybe they're showing an extreme abundance of overconfidence or entitlement in the people that are doing this, perhaps. I don't know. I'm very traditional. I think that you should always teach when someone either asks you to or tells you to or forces you to, as is the case for me sometimes with what they've done to me. So I don't think people should take that upon ourselves, because we're not the best judge of ourselves. And then this has happened with Dantian Gong, but it's happened with other things too. So I think that's unfortunately where the world is going a little bit, but I can only do my best to try to focus on the people that are within my school and within the way of working with me or my seniors, and try to make sure that they act with integrity and encourage it. And outside the school, I can't do much about it. Not much I can do about that, you know. But certainly those that are serious from the online thing have come to meet me or meet some of the other senior teachers and work with us. And if they were going to teach, that's what would have to happen. They would have to come spend time with us in person. The online thing was never a teacher training thing. It is personal for you to learn how to do this system. It wasn't about teaching. The other thing we get asked, third thing around this, is can they set up like what they call an affiliate school, where I don't really know how that works. I don't get it. Like, as far as I understand, they use our name. We've never met them. They take people through the academy material or something. And no, I don't know about that. It's not my way of working. I'm really sorry. That doesn't interest me. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do. You need to come see us. Because, as I said at the beginning of this, I don't think that any student coming to a teacher would want their teacher to have either learnt online or to have only done a little bit or whatever. Like, you want your teacher to have extensive knowledge, especially when you're taking them through an internal process, because I don't think people have fully realised yet just how potentially risky an internal process can be. It does run risks, of course, because a lot of people, when they look inside, or encounter all of their traumas and all of whatever, you know, the health problems, blockages, all those things are a factor. So I think that needs to be taken into account. Like, no student wants to go to that teacher, so you shouldn't be the teacher. You don't want to be that person. Do you know what I mean? I personally wouldn't want the insecurity of being a poorly trained hodgepodge sort of, I don't know what you call it, cowboy teacher or something like that, that's just kind of learnt something very quickly, and then have these people look at me expecting me to have lots of knowledge. That's not a comfortable position for you. That's not a good position for the student. So I think we should avoid it. I'm in Sweden at the moment. It's very beautiful here, isn't it? Where I spend my summers usually, Scandinavian forest, but I'm just about to relocate to Southeast Asia. And actually I'm going to live there, and some of my seniors are coming too, and so that'll be fun actually. That'll be really nice living out there. And the school is moving out there, so realistically the majority of people who would want to be teachers, if they want to see me, that's probably where I'm going to be most of the time. I'll spend the summers in America and Europe probably, but the rest of the year I'm going to be out there. So I'm doing the opposite from large mass-produced short-term yoga style teacher trainings. I'm actually moving away from the West to somewhere a bit more remote, out the way, making myself less accessible. I'm aware that from a financial or business perspective I should do the opposite and produce these month-long yoga teacher trainings and make a killing, but actually I don't care about money. It doesn't interest me. It's not a good enough motivator. My motivator is I want to be living in a place out of the way, because the world seems a bit chaotic right now sometimes, and we're living out of the way a little bit, and just focusing on my own practice and training hard and working very closely with the seniors that are with me or other people that come to visit us at this community. And I would imagine that some of those people that spend time there in the future will go on to teach. But I know from speaking to them, that's not their aim. Their aim is simply to be as good as these arts as they can, and to develop themselves as best they can, and to, you know, maybe learn a little bit more about the nature of self or whatever. They have their own goals, but the teaching will come secondary to those people if they decide to go on and do such things. So a lengthy answer. I apologise, but I'm always rambly, aren't I? That's what I use YouTube for, really, is for these rambles. I know everybody comes online and they're like, oh, he talks too much. Why doesn't he demonstrate anything? Well, I do actually. Lots of my demonstrations are in the academy or to my students, but YouTube is essentially the place where I like to communicate with people. I think it's a good platform for that. So hopefully I've answered this question extensively. And you may disagree. You may think that it's better to just spread it low quality as far and wide as we possibly can, and perhaps, maybe, I don't think, yeah, I don't know. Maybe. If that's true, other people can do it. That's not my way of working, and it's not my personal preference. So, thank you very much. I'm teaching tonight. I think it's like not too, like 100 people. I think I've got to give a talk to on the nature of Nei Gong. So that'll be quite nice. It's always nice introducing new people. I quite like it. Like a lot of people really like teaching the advanced stuff, but I also really like introducing people. I like to have that honor of kind of being there at the start of their journey and just kind of introducing it. So that'll be really nice. I'm looking forward to that. But right now, I'm going to go for a walk in the forest first.